Welcome back. Thanksgiving game. The Giants dropped this one 20-28 to the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants lose two in a row for the first time all year. They dropped to 7-4 overall. Dallas, they sweep the season series, if you want to call it that. They sweep both games from the Giants. They're now 8-3 on the year. They own the tiebreaker. They're up by a game. So the Giants' chances of catching Dallas kind of are, diminished after this game. This wasn't as bad as the 2017 Thanksgiving game versus Washington, but it was still pretty bad overall. The score for the most part was pretty much 28-13. The Giants had a last second, 8 seconds left touchdown to Richie James, and they did cover the spread. So if you took the Giants on the spread, congrats. But outside of that, it didn't really do much at all. So there's a lot to talk about. We'll get to all of it, but of course, leave a like, always helps out. Leave 5 stars on the podcast. I would definitely appreciate that. And let's get into it. So this game, of course, definitely had two halves to it. No kidding. But the Giants at halftime were up 13-7. And I was saying to myself, hey, there's a chance. I'm getting this vibe here that maybe something magical is going to happen this game and the Giants pull it off. They had 2 interceptions on deck in the first half, Julian Love, and the other one was Rodarius Williams, great anticipation play. Then you had the 4th down stop where they stopped Zeke on a 4th and 2. They ran out of I formation, which was so predictable. I don't know why Dallas did that because their play action was killing the Giants the entire day. But yeah, the first half, the Giants actually looked like they had a shot. Darius Slayton made a crazy catch over Anthony Brown. He basically mossed him. Yeah, we're doing this, on your head top thing, whatever the hell that means. But he made an insane catch. Darius Slayton, Jones gave him a shot, which I love that. Give your receivers more 50-50 balls. I don't know why they don't do it more, but he came down with that ball. It was the Giants' first completion, air yards wise, over 40 yards the entire year. So of course the Giants have had some long completions with Sterling Shepard back to week 1. But yeah, air yards wise, this was the longest Giants completion the entire year. But once the Giants came out in the second half, it was like Dallas made every single adjustment in this game and the Giants just had no answer. It seemed like the talent discrepancy really got to the Giants. I would say coaching and maybe just the play by Slayton and maybe just the interceptions kept them in the first half, kept them in the game in the first half and actually had them in front. But once the second half came around, Dallas made their adjustments and it was talent prevailed is pretty much how it went in my opinion. We even saw Andrew Thomas have his worst game of the year. So I know Micah Parsons put out that tweet saying oh, I thought this guy was the best. And yeah, he's still the best. But I believe Thomas came into this game with some type of illness, so he probably wasn't even 100%. And when Micah Parsons played the Giants in week 3, I believe Parsons also had an illness and didn't really impact the game as much. So it kind of happened to both those guys, to be fair. But after the third quarter, Dallas had a couple touchdowns, and that pretty much felt like it was it. Dagger right there. So Dallas did take it 28-20. First, we'll jump into the offense like we always do. So Daniel Jones, 21 of 35, 228 in the air, 1 touchdown, no turnovers, which is nice. But I think for Jones, I wasn't overly impressed. It was just his typical game this year where you didn't see too much that really made you go crazy. But I did love the Slayton throw, and I also loved the play where he was rolling to his right and he threw back to the middle of the field, which I know you're not supposed to do, but he found Chris Myrick. He really made something out of nothing on that play, so I like that from Jones. But outside of that, a lot of the stuff he did was pretty much in the structure of the offense. There was a lot of plays where it was a play action, you roll out and you find your guy in the flat and he'll pick up 5 to 7 yards. There weren't that many difficult throws for Jones in this game, but I also think that game plan made sense because the Giants didn't really have the best personnel wide receiver wise. Saquon Barkley, we'll touch on him more later, but only 39 yards on 11 attempts, 3.5 a carry, did have a receiving touchdown, but Saquon definitely looks like he has kind of hit a wall or maybe ran out of gas. I definitely think the 10 days off here will help him out more than just about anybody. Darius Slayton, 3 catches to 63 yards. He was a yard away from scoring, so he almost got in. But yeah, Slayton actually had a pretty good game. Isaiah Hodgins had a touchdown that was called back due to Tyree Phillips being an illegal man downfield. And if you watched the game, you saw Brian Dable was going ballistic. And I don't blame him because these calls are so ticky-tacky and it doesn't really affect anything. Nobody actually thinks that Tyree Phillips was a receiver on that play. I get he was technically 2 or 3 yards in front of the line of scrimmage when Jones threw the ball, so I guess it's the right call. But it's just so annoying. I don't know why these things have to be called in the NFL. I can get if your offensive lineman was 10 yards down the field, but no, he was close enough to the line of scrimmage. It's one of those things just let it go. The refs were definitely not good in this game overall. I can talk about that later when we get to the defense, but that was a call that just annoyed me. And it definitely took a huge what would have been touchdown off the board for the Giants. They did get a 57-yard Graham Gano field goal that drive, but still, having the touchdown would have been much better. So Daniel Jones missed a couple throws in this game. There was one on third down, one on fourth down. The third down one was to Richie James in the flat. And, of course, for some reason, the certain portion of the Giants fan base will never blame the quarterback, whether it was Eli or even Daniel Jones. But that's a throw you have to make. I understand he was pressured. I completely get it. But some fans want to act like it has to be 7-on-7 flag football. Like, there's going to be pressure in the NFL. If an NFL quarterback can't make a 5-yard throw to the flat with a little bit of pressure in his face, that's a problem. I expect my quarterback to make that throw. So he misses Richie James, and then there was the fourth down play where Dable decides to go for it. I'll try to look for the exact situation. It was 4th and 1, 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. Barkley was to the left of Jones in shotgun, and then Barkley ran to the right side. He was open in the flat, and then I think both guys are at fault here. There's a lot of finger pointing. Whose fault is it for that play? I think both guys are at fault. I would say it was more on Jones because you have to make that throw once again. But Saquon had a chance to catch it. He's running out. He had to reach behind him kind of, and it was a tough catch near his thigh. But it's one that if Saquon caught it, that's awesome. But that's a ball where Jones has to hit him in stride. If he did hit Saquon in stride, he may have still been running. Saquon may have had a huge gain or may have even scored on that play. So I get we want to make excuses for our quarterback because he's not in a good situation. I can definitely agree with that. But some of those throws that he had to make today were ones that he has to make. I don't care if I'm his receiver. He has to put the ball in a better spot for those guys. There was even one in I think it might have been second quarter, where Richie James bailed him out. It was the same type of throw he missed Richie James on in the first quarter, and Richie James made this insane catch on his fingertips. I mean, he almost missed them again. So, we need Jones to make those throws. He needs to make them. I don't care who his receivers are. I don't care if there's a bit of pressure. It's the NFL, man. It happens. Just so many excuses. We get it. His situation sucks. But you have to make those throws. That was the difference between possibly winning or losing this game. Converting on that third down, converting on that fourth down especially. That was a big play. And you don't. So the Mike Kafka play calling has definitely been something I've seen Giants fans talk about on Twitter. I wasn't really that annoyed. I saw some runs on 2nd and 10 where it was why even do that? It's just a waste. But I think for the most part, they played into the personnel they had. I would say the Giants' first 20 plays or so, they started out putting Jones in a decent position to succeed. A lot of just plays where he's rolling out to his right, not standing in the pocket, and giving the Cowboys a chance to sack him. We saw that early completion to Lawrence Cager for 15, 20 yards. There should have been that touchdown on the rollout to Isaiah Hodgins. That got called back. They ran one to Saquon where it was a quick play action. Saquon leaked out to the flat. Jones dumped it to him. Just simple completions that got the chains moving. And, I think the Giants did just about all they could offensively. Daniel Jones only had 3 carries for 14 yards. I would have liked to have seen more Daniel Jones on the move. I don't know if that was up to him or the coaching staff, but I do want to see more Daniel Jones runs. A quarterback as fast as he is and being 6'4", 6'5", Daniel Jones should have more than 3 rushing attempts, especially on this type of team when you don't have that many great weapons. Gary Brightwell was actually the most effective runner. He had 6.2 a carry, 5 carries, 31 yards, so shout out Gary Brightwell, actually played more than we thought. He had that nice run when Saquon was also in the backfield. I think they sent Saquon in motion kind of as a distraction or decoy, and they gave it to Gary Brightwell, so he made a nice run off of that. But yeah, I don't look at that game and say, oh, Mike Kafka called a shitty game. No, I don't think it was that bad. I don't know what else you want the man to do. I believe, and this is just my opinion, this entire podcast is my opinion, but I believe it's a talent issue. The Giants don't have the talent to do what Mike Kafka wants to do. I mean, this guy came from Kansas City. He's seen it all. He gets it. We have Brian Dable from Buffalo. He's seen it all. The Giants just don't have the roster to do the type of things they want to do. And I do think once the Giants, or once Mike Kafka, if he's still here next year, which I assume he will be unless he gets a head coaching job, assuming that they get their wide receiver 1 or even get their own quarterback or get whatever the hell they need or a new guard or whatever, they're going to take more chances and be a better offense next year, a more exciting offense that takes more chances downfield. But right now, at least, they just don't have the talent. It is what it is. This was supposed to be a rebuilding year. The Giants found themselves at 7-3 this game coming into it, and we expect more now because of that record. But the Giants, especially based on last week's injuries and Kenny Golladay being nothing and Tony being gone and Wandale being gone and Shepard being gone, the list goes on and on. They don't have the talent to do what this offensive coordinator wants to do. And maybe I'm overrating Kafka because we went from Jason Garrett to Kafka and the difference is night and day. So maybe I'm overrating Kafka, but I personally haven't seen anything where I'm like, oh, that's terrible. How can you call that? Like, sure, sometimes the clock management hasn't been great with this coaching staff. That's more of a Dable thing. But outside of some of those runs on 2nd and 10, where it's like, why even run on 2nd and 10 at that point? Get yourself a couple yards and get yourself into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. Like, outside of that, there's not many complaints I have about Mike Kafka. We'll touch on that more. Assuming there's more talent on this team next year, which there should be, I'll definitely get more critical of Mike Kafka if the Giants aren't putting up points offensively. But right now, this is majority still Dave Gettleman's guys. You have Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, two of the biggest, most controversial picks of Gettleman's tenure. Darius Slayton's a Gettleman guy. Like, these are not even their guys. I can't really judge Mike Kafka and this entire regime that hard because, like, this is not their guys. And some of them are practice squad guys, so it's like I can't really be too critical. Defensively, Kayvon Thibodeau, he had his best game, I believe. I mean, he was just all over Dak Prescott the entire game. He had a bunch of quarterback hits, had a season high, career high, I should say, 8 pressures according to PFF, had a pass rush win rate of 23.8, which was the highest percentage in the entire game. So that includes Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, whoever, Dexter Lawrence. It was the highest the entire game. So Kayvon, I know the stats haven't been there entirely, but that man played his ass off today, and I really leave this game saying we have a guy. Like, we have a really, really good edge rusher that'll only continue to get better. And whenever the hell Azeez Ojulari gets back, which it seems like he will be soon, maybe next game versus Washington, the Giants will have a good pass rushing tandem with those two guys. Hopefully Azeez stays healthy. Darnay Holmes, he did cause the one interception that Julian Love caught, which was a great play. But outside of that, I mean, it was just barbecue chicken, as they say, for CeeDee Lamb. It was just too easy. I understand this Don Martindale defense puts a lot of guys in man coverage, but sometimes you have to know your personnel. I'm not saying Don Martindale was terrible today, but you have to help Darnay Holmes in that situation. You can't leave him on an island in the slot with CeeDee Lamb, one of the best route runners in football. You can't do that. We saw what it did, and even on plays where Lamb wasn't catching the ball, there was pass interferences. We saw that in the fourth quarter. There were 2 calls where there was defensive holding, and I think one of them was absolutely ridiculous. I have no idea how that was a flag. The other one, maybe. I would not have thrown the flag if I was a ref, and I'm not even being biased, but, they were flags, so that is what it is. But just a matchup where, if you're a coaching staff, you want to put your players in a position to succeed. We always say that. But putting Darnay Holmes in the slot one-on-one with CeeDee Lamb in man coverage is not putting your player in a position to succeed. But the Giants, their corners are not good enough. You have guys like Nick McLeod out there, Jason Pinnock, Cordell Flott, who definitely had some rough moments in this game. Cordell Flott had a drive where Michael Gallup ate his lunch. He was just... he looked like a grown man versus him, which is why I wrote that down. Gallup had some very strong catches with his hands. He looked good out there. I thought Gallup had 100 yards at least, but the guy only had 63 yards, which it felt like so much more. 5 catches for 63 yards. I would have bet it was at least 80, but yeah, Gallup 63 yards. I guess he did that all on one drive, but he looked pretty good. The Dallas tight ends, they had success. Jake Ferguson, Dalton Schultz had a couple touchdowns. I remember that Ferguson play. Dak almost missed him. They ran a play action towards the end of the game. It was right before Maher missed that field goal, but Ferguson was running wide open. So I'll go through the notes and just talk about some of the things that happened. So there was this special teams mishap here. Nick McLeod should have downed the punt at the 1-yard line, but he dropped it somehow. It just went right through his hands. I don't know how that happens, but the Giants special teams continues to be terrible. The Giants got a 4th down stop. We talked about that against Zeke. The Isaiah Hodgins play, Gano 57-yarder, Rodarius Williams interception, Jones missed the, I called the easy throw. Once again, there was pressure, so don't attack me in the comments, but it's a throw my quarterback should be able to make. Slayton Moss, the guy, Darnay Holmes caused the interception. So yeah, in that third quarter, Darnay Holmes had a couple of those defensive holding calls, and the Giants defense had so many 3rd and longs allowed. It was so annoying. Like it felt like Dallas had 3 or 4 separate occasions where there was like 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 15, and they picked them all up. You know, it was so annoying. There was a 3rd and goal from 15 yards out, and Dalton Schultz was left one-on-one with Nick McLeod. He ran like a corner route. Dude was wide open. Not wide open, but like it wasn't that good of coverage. So once again, just not putting your players in a good position. And once the Giants didn't get that 4th down and 1 in the 3rd quarter, where Barkley, I guess, quote unquote, dropped the ball, that was pretty much the game. That kind of felt like it was over. And by the way, I didn't even mention this. There were 10 guys on the field for that play. I don't know how that happens, and they still should have completed it, which is funny, but I don't know. The Giants, the coaching staff has not looked as sharp the past couple weeks. I'm not freaking out. I'm still very happy about where this coaching staff is at overall. But to have 10 guys on the field on a 4th down play is just like pretty inexcusable. CeeDee Lamb had that insane one-handed catch where there was PI by Darnay Holmes, and then Dalton Schultz caught another touchdown right after. So that was pretty much it. So I wrote down on the bottom under defense for some reason. I didn't want to make a whole separate category, but I wrote concerns for this team. And I kind of did touch on this maybe in my preview video or maybe last week after the loss to the, who the hell did we play? The Lions. I did touch on that I am concerned about this team. I am. Like, I came into the season expecting like 6 wins. So it's like they already exceeded my expectations, but we're kind of at a point now where we're kind of expecting the playoffs. When you start 7-2, you should be expecting to go to the playoffs. But the Giants are going to run into a stretch here where it's tough, and we've gone over that. You get Washington, Philly, Washington again, Minnesota at Minnesota, Indy, and then Philly, and that's your season right there. So you're pretty much asking yourself, can the Giants get 2 more wins in that span? And if one of those wins is against Washington, that's huge. If the Giants get swept by Washington, they might just flat out miss the playoffs. If they even split with Washington, there's a chance they miss the playoffs. But they have to at least take one of those games versus Washington. Like next week's game, in my opinion, is probably the biggest game of the entire year. Because Washington, I believe they're 6-5 right now. The Giants are now 7-4. So they'll be right there. And the Commanders haven't had their bye yet, so it's weird. So they're at the Giants, then they have their bye, and then they come out of the bye and play the Giants again. I don't know why it was set up like that. But Washington does have a much tougher schedule. They play Atlanta this week, who they're a borderline playoff team. Giants twice. San Fran at San Fran. Versus Cleveland, where Deshaun Watson will be back and hopefully back in the swing of things. And then versus Dallas the last week of the year. So Washington's schedule is tough. That's the good news, but they are playing much better football. I'm just going to look at the playoff picture just for the hell of it. The Giants right now are in the 6th spot, right ahead of Seattle. If Seattle wins tomorrow, which they are favored, they're playing the Raiders, they hold the tiebreaker. So the Seattle Seahawks would be ahead of the Giants. The Giants would be back to the 7th and last spot in the playoff picture. You have Washington at 6-5, Atlanta at 5-6, and it kind of sucks for us that they're playing each other because unless there's a tie, one of those teams is going to win, Atlanta or Washington. I would prefer Atlanta to win because they're only 5-6. But yeah, our only threat really is Washington. I don't see Atlanta making a big run. I mean, they've had a decent season, but Kyle Pitts is out, and that team is they're not that talented. So with Washington having a tough schedule, I feel better about the Giants' chances, but you also run into the problem that if the Giants lose both games to Washington, it puts them in a very tough spot. They have to at least split. You would love to sweep that. If the Giants sweep Washington, they're in. There's no doubt. But if they somehow lose both, that's a big problem. So I feel decent about our chances to make the playoffs, but you have to take care of Washington next week. And I'm happy now that we played today because you get 10 days off. You can get guys healthy. I would expect, based on what they've been saying, that Azeez Ojulari and Evan Neal should be back. We'll see about other guys. Hopefully, Fabian Moreau is back. He'll be the cornerback 1, which is crazy. Still no McKinney. I don't believe he's eligible yet, but hopefully he's getting close. But yeah, this game, it wasn't surprising. I was telling people at work I expected like 27-13, I think I said, which was actually close until the final touchdown. But the first half, I did definitely like how the Giants played. I know they were limited because of the players they had on the field, which was not ideal. But they played, pretty good football the first half. But Dallas, they're just way more talented, and I think they made enough halftime adjustments. They ran more play action. They put CeeDee Lamb on an island with Darnay Holmes, and they took advantage of it. So anyway, that will do it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I don't know when my next Giants video will come out. I have a busy weekend, so maybe I'll just take the weekend off. I do want to make a video about Daniel Jones and talk about, is he going to be back here next year? Because I've mentioned this before. I think there's way too many people that are 100% sure he's back next year, and I do not believe that for a second. I still think it's very much up in the air. I'm not opposed to bringing him back for another year. I'm really not, because there's not many other better options, and he's shown a lot of growth in this system. He's definitely been better in the past 2 years, and I would like to see what he looks like with a real wide receiver one, but there's also a chance the Giants just are not interested in keeping him, and I don't think people, at least some people, are not seeing that side of the argument, so I definitely want to make a video talking about that. I mean, Joe Schoen literally just came from an organization that came off their first playoff berth in a long time with Tyrod Taylor, who was still he was under 30. He was probably 28 at the time, so he was still in his prime. They moved off of Tyrod Taylor after a playoff appearance going 9-7. So, some people act like, oh, if Jones makes the playoffs, he's definitely back. I don't know about that. We've seen too many examples of it. Even when Case Keenum went 13-3 with the Vikings, they shipped his ass out, or they let him walk in free agency. So you know what? It's not 100% guaranteed that Jones is back just because the record looks good. This is not Joe Schoen's guy. So we're going to talk about that. Might be an interesting video. Might get some hate comments, but you know what? That's all right. I feel it's a real conversation that has to happen. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sucks to lose on Thanksgiving, but I don't know. At least we can just sit back, enjoy Sunday, and root against Washington. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys next time.